Hello, welcome to Street Sociology. Today, I think it's about time I teach you guys an actual sociological term. It's been long enough. Okay, so I'm going to actually hit up a term here by a sociologist called Emil Durkheim. The term is called anomie, and the reason I'm mentioning it on this channel is that I'm going to implement it in a way that you can understand. I'm not going to say a lot. All sociological theories are generally quite complicated and take years to get on top of. We don't need that. Most people don't give a toss. So instead of keeping it in the books, let's bring it to the people. So, anomie is a theory in which basically a person who has lost, who is aimless and directionless and has lost the guidelines that we all run our lives by, feels a sense of meaninglessness and above all hopelessness for the future. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this theory now is because it doesn't just relate to one thing that's happening in the world today. It relates to most of them, to be quite honest with you, because I'll give you a practical example. Okay, let's say you win the lottery. This might sound weird, but bear with me. Let's say you win the lottery, because this can go to losing regulation by becoming poorer or richer, it doesn't matter. But what happens to people when they win like $50 million in the lottery or whatever, in America or Europe or anything? You quite often hear a sob story 5 or 10 years later about how they lost it all. Their life was meaningless. A lot of people say they wish they'd never won the lottery. Now, to a person such as myself, who has not got and never has really had any goddamn money, it seems really bizarre. Haven't you won? You've won the lottery, you've got all the money in the world, you can do whatever you want. And therein lies the threat. Because you no longer have to get out of bed to go to work. You no longer have to behave in a rational way because you can pretty much buy your way out of any situation you end up in. And when you can do anything you want and then you do it, you find the cold hard truth: when there's nothing left to do, there ain't no reason. Now, this cuts both ways. Okay, a lot of us find ourselves in that position, especially in my generation, born in 1988 and older, or sorry, years later, so younger than me. We often find ourselves, some of us, in a very, very similar position. It's like even prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, if we're going to be honest here, which we should, the future for my generation isn't actually fantastic, even prior to the COVID pandemic. It really isn't good. With COVID, it really, really isn't good. Okay, I'm doing a master's degree in sociology that I'll finish in like 5 months, and am I going to get a job out of it? Very likely not. It would have been difficult before the pandemic, and now, yes, but we persist because we must. Nevertheless, a lot of us feel the same way. Now, let's relate this more to some practical examples that you will have seen in the media. Okay, let's go, where to begin? Anti-vaxxers. They believe, some of them put on Facebook in caps lock that whatever new vaccine science invents, oh, it hasn't been tested. Oh, it's got Bill Gates microchips in it. Oh, it's a tracking device. Well, guess what? Your phone's a tracking device. Idiots. So anyway, we don't believe in the the sanctity of these institutions anymore. Now, these have been undermined. Now, a lot of people in America think the Center for Disease Control is part of some form of shady pan-global cabal or something. I mean, this kind of ridiculousness would never have actually started festering, let alone on this huge level, unless people had reasons to not trust organisations. Now, I put that the first major event that made a lot of us realise, especially my generation and younger, that everything is more or less fixed against you was the global financial crisis, where a bunch of billionaires robbed people of billions, everybody, normal people, lost everything, and the billionaires got richer. Yeah, that didn't really help my outlook on the financial system of the world, I'll put it that way. So, a lot of this, you can also look at QAnon, if any of you are familiar with this organisation who spouts garbage conspiracy theories. They've actually got quite a lot of traction in the West. The studies have shown that over a quarter of adults in any given Western country are susceptible to their propaganda. Satanic pedophiles secretly run the government from their lizard cave, and anyway, this ridiculousness would never have been able to take hold unless there were genuine reasons why people didn't trust institutions anymore. Now, let's take as well the election of Donald Trump. I don't propose people voted for Donald Trump specifically because they thought he was the best guy in the world. I think they voted for him because the Democrats shafted Bernie Sanders and put Hillary Clinton as the candidate. Why would you want to vote for the same system that has screwed Americans for the last 60 years? Now, of course, in voting for Trump, they simply made the bad things worse. But they didn't vote for Trump because they wanted some sort of an asshole to be in power. They voted for Trump because they wanted a change, because the current system wasn't working for them, and they were right in that regard. They felt anomie, they felt disconnection, okay? And that goes, Black Lives Matter. You might remember the middle of this year when several cities, let's just say there was a little bit of civil unrest, a number of those cities. If those people believed that the system of administration worked for them and listened to them, they wouldn't riot. People forget this. You go, why are people rioting and breaking stuff? That's dumb. Yeah, it is. But what is a riot? Riot is the language of the unheard. People who are happy and trustworthy of a system actually don't go out and break stuff. Okay, so there's very likely they felt an anomic distrust of the system as well. Right, so why have we found ourselves in this position all of a sudden? Part of it, a smaller part, is social media and the intensifier that acts as. You know, we're going to get on, and we've got our algorithms, so if you're right-wing, all you ever see is right-wing stuff on Facebook, and you think everyone thinks like that. But if you're left-wing and the Facebook algorithm just chucks sort of left-wing stuff towards you, you'll think that everyone in the world operates like that. And it's actually getting worse. It's really a problem. But it's not the key problem. The key problem is where it gets a touch complicated, but you'll be fine. Under capitalism, neoliberal capitalism, which is the really profit-scorched earth type that kind of came to prominence in the 70s and 80s and remains the dominant ideology in the Western world today, holds that the greatest thing that we can achieve is financial success. We'll get to that, but consider what we had before. When capitalism started in the 17th century, just about, people tended to be very, very religious, okay? Especially in the West, well, everywhere, are religious. So you could, if you were of a belief system that, you know, if you were to slave your life away working for some capitalist in a factory and you put in that work and suffering, that would bring you closer to God, as the Protestants did, then that was okay. Now the capitalists, the guys who own the factories, are like, yeah, mate, you'll be closer to God. Just make sure you don't slack on the overtime. Yeah, it was perfect. People actually went to work in a miserable job to buy stuff they usually didn't need, but they actually thought there was a greater good afterwards, and it was all worth it. Now, some people still believe that, and I respect their right to believe that. I don't. And the rest of my generation doesn't really either. No, we actually know something. You can disagree with me on this, and that's okay. I don't mean to try and upset anyone or challenge anyone's belief system, but my belief system does not hold that there's an afterlife, and nor does the rest of most of my generation. Okay, we actually know that there is just one life. This is it. So, given that religion has lost its supremacy in society, and now we've got to a point in the technological age where we're actually given the burden of choice. This comes back to what we're told is the thing we're supposed to achieve. Before it was work hard, be closer to God, work hard, provide for your family, and that's whatever. That's what you were told you should do. Okay, but that kind of went to the wayside. Now, what have we been told through the media since the 70s? I know most of you are younger than that, but you get it. Consume. Once religion was gone, the people who make many billions of dollars thought, crap, people don't want to suffer and die for us for minimum wage for no reason anymore. What are we going to do? Convince them they need to buy stuff. Okay, so maybe 100 years ago, people often held the greatest thing that you could achieve in your personal life was to, have good family connections, be part of the community, the church, whatever it was you wanted to do, right? But we've taken away these communal things and replaced them with goods, mass-produced goods, and we don't need them. We really don't. We've been taught that no longer is the greatest achievement you can make in your life a strong family or a connection or good friend group or create something. It's not like that anymore. What we've been told, falsely, is that the greatest thing you can achieve, the best way to make it in the Western world is to acquire rectangular pieces of paper. This one has 10 written on it. Isn't that cool? That's it. We're told that there's no other greater thing in life you could possibly achieve than to acquire small rectangular pieces of paper with numbers on them, because at this point in history, this very finite point in history, we're told that's what you need. And why do you need that? So you can buy the Ferrari, okay? You can buy the mansion. You can buy the perfume with $600 with some dude's face on it or some woman's face on it. You don't need that crap. We're taught that the consumption of non-essential physical goods is to be placed at the highest tier of human achievement in the Western world, and family and community and creation and art and everything else is a distant second, if that. So, right here we've addressed one of the key questions in sociology. If not religion or some other collective conscience, thank you Durkheim, who wants to, you know, create for society, what do we do now? We can't be perpetually motivated by the, you know, infinite and ever-increasing consumption of material goods, which leads us to the key and underlying problem of neoliberal capitalism. It only works if we keep expanding. We keep buying more than the year before of useless crap, then it works. When it doesn't do that, like this year, the whole rotten house of cards comes down. So we'll have to see what happens. But this is a term you can think about. You can Google it too. You know, Anomie, Anomie, Emile Durkheim. Have a look into it, and you might be surprised how much it relates to not just a lot of people, especially young people across the whole Western world right now. You might just find it relates to you as well. Something to think about anyway. Street sociology.